What if the relationships you're counting on in hard moments were shaped entirely by what you did or didn't do in the easy ones? Today, we're exploring why the connections that sustain us aren't built in a crisis. They're cultivated long before one arrives. And you'll get a simple way to start tending the people who matter before life gives you a reason to.
Welcome to the Live Right Now podcast with me, Alan Haw. This is where mindfulness meets everyday life. Thanks for joining me for this reflection on living with intention. Let's talk about how we can live right now.
Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Alan, and welcome to Live Right Now. For years, I used to have a garden full of vegetables that I enjoyed all summer and into the fall. The last couple of years, I didn't plant like I wanted to. But this year, found myself back at it again. This week, my wife and I spent several days getting this year's garden ready, cleaning containers, preparing soil, buying plants, tomatoes, peppers, broccoli, rosemary, chives, some flowers. It's a pretty full garden. And it's a lot of work, but right now there's not a lot to show for it. No tomatoes on the table, no peppers to harvest, just rows of plants that I get to watch grow. But that's how gardening works. You do the work long before you see the results. That's a pattern that shows up in a lot of areas of life, especially relationships, the ones we tend and the ones we mean to tend. Most people think of relationships the way they think of a grocery store. You go when you need something, you find what you came for, and you leave. And well, for a lot of what life requires, that may work just fine. But there's a category of connection that doesn't work that way. The kind that's there when things get hard. The kind where you can make a phone call and actually be heard. The kind where somebody already knows your context, your history, your values, what you've been through, and they don't need you to go over it all again from scratch. That kind of relationship can't be purchased on demand. It has to be grown. And growing takes time that most of us don't feel like we have. So we mean to reach out. We think about someone and make a mental note. We tell ourselves we'll get to it. And life, real, full, legitimate life, keeps filling the space where that intention lived. That's not negligence. That's just the way busy looks. But busyness has consequences we don't always see coming because the cost doesn't show up immediately. It shows up later when you reach for a connection that was never cultivated and find something thinner that you needed. One of the things I look forward to most every summer is the first cherry tomato from my garden. Now, if you've ever picked one straight off the vine and eaten it while it's still warm from the sun, oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It tastes different, better than anything you'll find in the grocery store. Now, part of that is emotional. I mean, you grew it, but part of it is measurable. A tomato continues converting sugars to starch after it's picked. Now, the one that traveled 3 days on a truck, that's lost something real in transit. That's something that can't be restored by the time it reaches you. The one you grew, picked at the moment it was ready, that's objectively sweeter. And relationships, they work the same way. A connection tended over time, checked in on, shown up for, invested in without agenda. That has something in it that a connection of convenience simply doesn't. The depth is real. The trust is real. The ease of reaching out in a hard moment, that's real. It's not just that it feels warmer. It actually is more. Now, no gardener would plant tomatoes in May and ignore them until August. We understand instinctively that growth requires tending. We treat connection like a resource that we can access on demand. Reach out when things get hard, lean on people when the weight gets heavy, and well, sometimes that works. But the relationships that can actually hold that weight were being built while nothing urgent was happening. While you were just checking in, just showing up, just paying attention, while there was no reason for it. Nobody expects a tomato plant to produce fruit without water, sunlight, and care. Yet we often expect relationships to thrive on good intentions alone. The connections that sustain us later are usually the ones we tended long before we needed them. The tending isn't what you do before the relationship gets real. The tending is the relationship. But knowing that doesn't make it any easier. Those moments when nothing is urgent, those are exactly the moments when it's easiest to let things slide. And we all have those relationships, people that we genuinely care about, people we think about warmly, people that we fully intend to stay close to. And somehow, months pass, sometimes years, not because anything went wrong, just because nothing was urgent enough to interrupt the momentum of daily life. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it dormant ties, relationships that were once active that still carry real history and fondness, but haven't been tended in a while. Research consistently shows that reconnecting with a dormant tie, even after a long silence, produces more value than people expect. We assume too much time has passed. We assume it'll be awkward. We assume that we've missed the window. But that's not usually the case. The relationship didn't disappear, it just needed tending, which means the damage from neglect is more reversible than most people assume. But it also means the window isn't infinite. Dormant ties can be reactivated. Abandoned ones, those are harder to recover. The difference between dormant and abandoned is usually just time and intention. The things that matter most in life usually refuse to be convenient. Strong friendships aren't convenient. Trust isn't convenient. Community isn't convenient. Being there for someone isn't convenient. But what makes relationships meaningful isn't convenient. And it's not usually a single dramatic moment. People don't usually remember what you said to them. They remember whether you were paying attention, whether you were present when it didn't cost you anything. Those moments of connection accumulate into something that feels like being known. And being known is the actual thing, not the network, not the contact list. The experience of being genuinely seen by someone who didn't need anything from you when they looked. And once you understand that, you start thinking about relationships less as something to maintain and more like something to cultivate. Maintenance keeps something from falling apart. Cultivation, that helps something grow. Much like a gardener who gives each plant water but pays special attention to which ones need more care. Because it's not a project, it doesn't require a plan or a system or a scheduled block of time. It requires noticing. Someone crosses your mind, and instead of filing it away as a good intention, you do the small thing right then before the moment passes. Now think about that cherry tomato again. At the end of a season of preparation and tending and waiting, the payoff isn't complicated. You reach out, you pick it, you eat it right there. The tomato is simply the visible evidence of a relationship that existed long before the harvest arrived. That's what a well tended relationship feels like when you actually need it. No friction, no warm up, no explaining yourself from scratch. Just the thing itself, exactly as it was meant to be because you didn't let distance accumulate between you. There's a version of loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. It's the feeling of reaching for connection and discovering that distance has quietly accumulated where closeness used to be. Not because people don't care, because nobody tended the distance. We get busy, we mean well, we tell ourselves the important people know we're thinking of them even when we don't say so, but relationships rarely disappear all at once. They fade a little at a time. The relationships worth having require the same thing a garden does, not constant attention, just regular enough presence that nothing quietly dies while you're not looking. Cultivate the ones that matter. Distance grows on its own. And you can't harvest what you didn't plant, but you can start planting today. I want you to think of 3 people that you genuinely care about, people you think warmly of, but you haven't been in real contact with lately. Not because you need something, just because the relationship matters to you. Pick one of those people and then treat that as an invitation to act. Reach out and close the distance. That's the whole assignment. The habit of acting on the noticing instead of storing it as a good intention is what separates a tended relationship from a neglected one over time. And over time is the only place this plays out. The cherry tomato doesn't become sweet because of one good day in the garden. It tastes like that because of everything that accumulated over a whole season. Your relationships work the same way. You already know who to reach out to. You probably thought of them already. That thought is the seed. What you do with it next is tending. Thanks for spending some time thinking about this with me today. Until next time, tend to the relationships that matter. Water the plant. And remember to live right now.
Thanks for being part of Live Right Now. If you like what you've heard, I encourage you to like and follow the podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration today. Join the conversation on our Facebook page or email me your thoughts at the address in the show notes. I'm Alan Haw. Until next time, make the most of every moment and remember to live right now.